My life seems to run according to themes. And these themes, it's like when I have a conversation with a client or one of my mastermind students, and they present a problem, I can usually count on that same problem showing up a couple more times in different conversations. And it's almost like this life is it runs in themes, and it runs in energies, and it runs in cycles, and we're all experiencing kind of the same themes and the same energies and the same cycles. And it happened again this week. And the theme one when I sat down to hang out with one of my close friends, he said as soon as I get over the hump of this XYZ challenge, I'll finally be able to breathe. And I simply said, yeah, probably not for long. You won't for long. And I think that took him a little bit by surprise. And I've now had that same conversation with multiple people. And I want to unpack the reason for my response on this episode and kind of talk about why I see that differently. All right. And I'm gonna share maybe this will help you, and maybe this you'll be able to break a pattern, and maybe you'll be able to break out of a cycle or repetitive challenge or obstacle that you've experienced. Because once you see this, then you can't unsee it, and maybe it'll frustrate you for a short period of time, but it'll ultimately create liberation and freedom in your life. And that's ultimately what I want for you, and that's ultimately what I want for all of us. So when I started my spiritual journey back in 2016, I had my little awakening, my Kundalini awakening, and hopefully by now you either have an order of or a copy of Inner World, Outer World on order, or you have it in your hot little hands and you're reading it. But in the prologue, you hear about my Kundalini awakening. I share that, and that was an act of courage to kind of share that with the world. And I wasn't. I might have told some people about that, but to share that in hard copy form, that was a challenge for me, and it's something I'm glad I did. Now I keep hearing about awakenings, again, themes, right? And it's themes are everywhere. But anyway, I shared about that, and that kind of started my spiritual journey, my spiritual adventure. I had this mass exodus of toxic energy in my body, and my body was convulsing and seizing, and it was a good time, but it was very liberating and very freeing, and kind of set me on a course for where I am right now. But anyway, I was reading books at a very rapid pace, and some of the books that I was reading were like Neville Goddard and Dr. Joe Dispenza and Eckhart Tolle and Think and Grow Rich and Byron Katie, Loving What Is. All of these are documented in the at the very end, the last couple pages of Inner World, Outer World, where I have about 30 to 35 books that I highly recommend for spiritual journey and to enrich your spiritual experience. But I was presented when I connected with Neville Goddard for the first time. Uh, he's like one of the modern godfathers of spirituality and awakening. But one of the concepts he shared was it's very simple but very complex. And when I first heard it, it didn't land at all, and I thought it was complete bullshit. But as I started studying, and as I started learning, and as I started allowing it and receiving it into my life, everything changed. And that simple concept by Neville Goddard, and I recently reconnected for the millionth time with his great book, Feeling is the Secret. The simple concept he shares in there is there's nothing real in your external world. And I mean, on the surface, it's like, okay, what's the trick here? There's got to be a trick to this. There's nothing real in your external world. That only your internal environment is real, and your external environment, what you see, what you feel, what you taste, what you touch, what you can tap, none of it's real. And what Neville goes on to share is that your inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your internal state, your beliefs, your perspectives, your perceptions, your preferences, All of these things inside of you create what you see in the world. And the material world that you see outside of you or that you experience is literally just an outpicturing of who you are. Now, it took me a while. In fact, it took me years to totally comprehend this. But after I started to really absorb this and understand it and make it, just allow it to I guess absorb into my body, to move from knowledge to wisdom. And knowledge, wisdom is just knowledge absorbed into the body. It's embodied, and we begin to operate from that place. When I started to embody this new wisdom and I started to live from it, everything in my life started to change rapidly, because it creates such a sense of freedom and liberation, because that means we don't have to control anything outside of us. And the only thing that we need to control, the only thing that we get to control, is what's happening in our inner environment, the environment of our thoughts, the environment of our emotions, the environment of our beliefs, our perceptions, our perspectives, all this stuff that's inside of us. And as we change what's inside of us, we will experience a different external reality. Dr. Joe Dispenza says it very, very simply. He says, your personality is made up of all of that stuff, thoughts, beliefs, your perspectives, your opinions, your emotions, all of that stuff is your personality. And when you change your personality, you change your personal reality. As your personality changes, so will your personal reality, because like Neville said, it's just an outpicturing of what's happening inside of you at any given time. My good friend Brian Schroeder says, if you want to understand what you believe, look at your circumstances. If you want to understand what's happening inside of you, look at your circumstances. Look at how much love you have in your relationship. Look at how much money you have in your bank account, how much success and impact you've had in the world. Look at your health. If you want to understand what you believe and what's happening in your inner environment, simply look in your external world and you'll be able to back into what you believe. And then when you change that inner world, when you change the personality, when you change the inner environment, then the outpicturing will change as well. Because when you change the personality, you change the personal reality. Very simple, not always easy, because we'd rather our ego wants us to fix the external world. Our ego wants us to leave the inner world alone, because that's where the ego lives, right? The fear-based ego is inside, and it wants us to leave that alone, because if we clear out too much ego, then it'll lose control and we'll end up living as this beautiful and majestic soul that we really are at our core essence. And our ego convinces us to fix what's happening outside of us, and sometimes at the expense of what's going on inside of us. Now, when you realize that you can't control the world, that you can't control circumstance, that you can't control what's happening outside of you, you only control what's happening inside of you, and you can use what's happening inside of you to influence the external world, it creates a sense of freedom and liberation, that the only thing in life I need to do is to master my inner world. How cool is that? Because no matter where I go, there I am. So I've got all the tools that I need to be able to reshape, reform, and create a higher level circumstance inside of my body. And that'll change the circumstances that I experience in my life. It's very freeing and very liberating. Now, there are other spiritual teachers besides these two that say the same exact things. And Dr. Wayne Dyer says that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Every master, every spiritual teacher has said the same thing. When you master the inner world, you'll master the external world. Now let's get back to this theme that keeps showing up. Is 3 or 4 people, pretty much over the course of 3 or 4 days, said, I've got this challenge in my life right now. And as soon as I get over the hump of this challenge, then I'll finally be able to breathe again. And I said, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. And if you do get to breathe, it's probably not going to be for long. And I know that's not what they wanted to hear, but I know that's what they needed to hear because I got to help them understand that your inner world is creating the external circumstances. And the pressures that you feel right now were created by your inner environment. Like one of my students is facing some legal stuff, some legalese in business, right? Business law, and is facing some pressure there. There's some real estate pressure. There's some attorney pressure. There's some financial pressure. And he's like, if I just get over the hump of this current legal experience, I'll finally be able to breathe. And I said, well, when's the last time that you breathed for and you felt freedom and peace for a long period of time? And he said, never, because his inner reality would not let his external reality be without big challenges and big obstacles that just kept showing up to create a sense of chaos inside of him and reveal the sense of chaos inside of him. And as soon as he graduates from one challenge and gets on the other side of it, another one shows up right away because he is not wired for peace and harmony and freedom. He is wired for chaos. So when he gets on the other side of chaos, eventually what's happening inside of him, the chaos that's happening inside, invites more chaos back in because your external world is simply a reflection of your inner state. And until you change what's happening inside, you'll keep inviting the same exact patterns and cycles and the same programs, challenges, and obstacles that you don't know how to live without. And this theme keeps showing up of as soon as I get over the hump, I'll be able to breathe. And all of them were wired to not breathe, to not have harmony, to not have peace, to not have balance, to not have room. They were built and addicted for struggle. Now, they all have the tools. They all have the tools. They all have the same tools. In fact, every single one of these people have read Inner World, Outer World, where there's a chapter on meditation, where there's a chapter on samskaras and letting go, where there's a chapter on shadow work, where there is a chapter on your beliefs create your reality. All of these chapters are represented and they've all read the book. They all have access to it. I have a meditation bundle on my website, innerwealthglobal.com. I have a meditation bundle accessible on there and all of the meditations that they need to create a new reality, installing future you, to doing shadow work. All of the meditations that are in that bundle will help them reshape and reorganize what's happening inside. But they're so busy working to reshape the external world, they're not paying attention to what really matters. And that's what's happening in their inner world, their thoughts, their emotions, their beliefs, their perspectives, their perceptions. And that's their personality. And their personality is creating their personal reality. In the Inner Wealth Mastermind and in Inner Wealth Global in general, we have three reasons to exist. One is to lessen the impact and the grip that fear and anxiety has on us. Number two is we're here to double or triple down on our design, our authentic, unique design, and our purpose in the world and live from that. And the third is to expand all of our circumstances that we experience in the world. And you do all of those things by rewiring your central nervous system. And we've talked about, over and over the conscious mind versus the unconscious mind. And all the unconscious mind is the wiring that's in our nervous system. The wiring in our nervous system, whether it be the brain, the nerves, the nerve endings, the spinal cord, all of this is the nervous system. And when we rewire and we reshape our nervous system, it's going to change how we experience life, because we literally experience our life and we create our life from what's happening in our nervous system. And this is what Neville was saying when he said there's nothing real outside of you. Everything that you see in the world is just an outpicturing of who you are, because your nervous system is broadcasting what you'll allow into your life, what you expect in your life, what you're familiar with in life. And all of these signals from your nervous system is going out into the world and drawing and attracting. This is why the thoughts are your prayer and the emotions are your magnet. And these are derivatives of your central nervous system. As you change the energetic pattern of your nervous system, what your nervous system will hold, will invite, will allow, is feel safe with, then that new attraction point will create a new magnetism that draws in different circumstances. And in my Choose Your Destiny Live Intensive that I just had this weekend, I do lead them on journeys on their inner state, and we do body scans where I have them. I invite them to connect with different body parts, with their different internal places in their body, and to let go of pressure, stress, and tension. And when we finish that body scan, I say, how do you feel? And the answer is usually more peaceful. I feel more balanced. I feel more at ease. Wow. But you have no more money in your bank account. You don't have any more love. You don't have nothing outside of you has changed, but you feel different inside of you. And when they feel different inside, that means they're broadcasting a different energetic signal. And before that body scan, I show them the aura images that Angie and I had done, the aura photos that Angie and I had taken in Sedona, Arizona. And I said, I showed these aura photos because the aura is the signal that you're broadcasting into the world. And by changing your energetic signature, you change the signaling into the world. And I also took them on journeys of future casting, of seeing their new future and installing their new future, of shadow work. And I also took them on a journey where we put them all together. We did a body scan to come to a sense of peace and balance and harmony. I took them into their shadows so they could see their shit. And then I brought them into higher states of their future reality through bringing a new personality into their new reality to create a new personal reality, and to sit as that, and to exit that journey, that meditation, as an entirely different human being. And what happens after that, after we do a body scan, after we do some shadow work to let go of some scars and some pain, and as we start to wire the body for a new reality, that means you're going to broadcast a new energetic signature. You're going to broadcast a new energetic frequency, and you're going to broadcast a higher level of consciousness. And as you do so, it's going to invite higher level circumstances into your life. But oftentimes people are just trying to control things outside of them that aren't real. They're just a reflection and an image and an outpicturing of what's happening inside of you. What a beautiful revelation. What a beautiful realization. What a beautiful experience. All we need to do is clear out the lower level beliefs, the lower level worries, the lower level doubts, the lower level fears. All we need to do is raise our internal level of consciousness, and the level of external experiences and circumstances that we have in life, they will grow and they will evolve as well. And this goes back to, once again, I'll leave it how I started it. I've been having these conversations where they say, as soon as I get on the other side of this challenge, I'll finally be able to breathe. If you become a different human through that challenge and you let go of the need for the stress and the struggle and the challenge and the obstacle, yes, you will be able to break that pattern and breathe. But if you bring the same signal, the same beliefs, the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same expectations to the other side of that challenge or obstacle, you're not going to be at peace, and you're not going to be able to breathe for long, because you're going to invite a new one, because your personality is the same, and your personality creates your personal reality. I hope this is making sense. My good friend Brian Schroeder was at the Choose Your Destiny Live Intensive, and he's a multi-decamillionaire with a beautiful life. He's at peace in himself. He's at peace in the world. And I said, Brian, if you were to put percentages on how much the inner work and how much the external work has influenced and helped you create your beautiful material circumstances, what percentages would you put on that? And he said 80% internal, 20% external. Guys, make sure you're focusing on the right things. Make sure you're focusing on the only thing you control, your inner state, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your perspectives, your opinions, your preferences. Focus on that, because when you change that, everything will change, because nothing outside of you is real. It's just an outpicturing, and it's a projection of who you are. Change who you are, and everything in your life will change. Only every single time.